Hi everyone and welcome back to Saturn Secrets. Today we're discussing this season's Mercury retrograde and what it means for your zodiac sign. Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're discussing Mercury retrograde, the dreaded Mercury retrograde, except this one has a little bit of a positive twist. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for regular updates. Before we start today's video, I would like to quickly mention our sponsor, which is Modern Day Manifestations. Modern Day Manifestations make beautiful handcrafted jewellery using natural healing stones. They have a range of rose quartz, labradorite, jasper, rhodonite and many more to choose from. Their stones offer many benefits to heal, uplift and energize your vibrations. Plus, they're made of cruelty-free vegan materials. They're currently offering a massive sale of up to 70% off, so click the link in the description below to get yours. I am currently wearing the Jade and the Tiger's Eye, and both of them bring fortune, prosperity and grounding, which is something that we could really use when Mercury goes retrograde in an air sign, because with Mercury going retrograde in an air sign, Mercury rules our mind, our mental agility, our thought process, our communication, and when it's retrograde in an air sign such as Libra, these things can get muddled and even heightened to the point that they become overwhelming. So staying grounded in this season is so important. So let's mention what Mercury retrograde actually is if you're unfamiliar. When Mercury goes retrograde, it can mess up things like our communication and our correspondence, and it has a huge emphasis on your thoughts and how you process information. But the main buzzwords are communication, because Mercury is to do with how we articulate ourselves and how we are messengers in our life. You know the concept, don't shoot the messenger. It really applies during Mercury retrograde season. So whenever Mercury is retrograde, you can expect emails to go missing, you can expect communication errors, misunderstanding, and even hearing from people you haven't heard from in a while. A lot of people associate Mercury retrograde with hearing from an ex, and typically it's not always that way. With Mercury retrograde, it's more about revisiting old issues that you need to hash out with people in your life or in terms of your communication or technology. But because this one is in Libra, it actually might be more that Mercury retrograde cliche of hearing from old partners or old relationships, potentially even old best friends, because with Mercury retrograde in Libra, Libra is the sign associated with the other, with relationships. So past relationships may be revisited and maybe even reconciled under this particular transit. It doesn't have to be romantic, but it can be with people that you regarded yourself as very close to, whether we're very close one-on-one relationships. Despite the fact that Mercury retrograde can mess up our communication, it's worth noting that this is the last one of 2021. We have been experiencing Mercury retrograde in all the air signs. So for a lot of people, they have found that Mercury retrograde energies are that little bit more intense because they're in air signs, and the air element itself is associated with communication and technology. So when we have retrogrades in the air signs, you can typically see that oftentimes how we process information and analyze information can be tricky. There can be technological errors. Your Wi-Fi can suddenly be less helpful. You can suddenly find that the email that you thought you sent to one person has gone all the way to somebody else. That's typical of a Mercury retrograde. And when Mercury is retrograde, what the energy actually is, it's not necessarily muddled, it's more so amplified. So it's heightened, you're more aware of it, for you to figure out what it means to you, what it is that you're actually considering that you might not have to consider in your day-to-day routine whenever Mercury is not retrograde. So when it goes retrograde and errors are happening, they might be a cue for you to slow down, or they might be a cue for you to devote more time in a day to looking after your mental health. These can be things that come up with Mercury retrograde that you might miss in an ordinary situation. Now Mercury's been in shadow since the 6th of September, so you will have noticed since then, and particularly around that point, around the 6th or 7th of September, what was going on for you, or what issues may have been coming up in terms of your communication or in terms of your technology, or what it is that you're doing in your day-to-day life. So because this Mercury retrograde falls in the beautiful sign of Libra, this is putting an emphasis on our relationships. What is working for you and what is not, especially in how you communicate to significant others, your friends or your business partners. It's who you communicate with and what your contribution is. Because in Libra, Mercury retrograde can really show us what is out of balance in terms of our relationships, what needs to be tended to. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. In fact, it doesn't have to be confrontational, because Libra isn't necessarily a confrontational sign. In fact, it's actually associated with making peace, and it's also associated with justice. So in relationships, there's a reassessment period of what's fair, either from another person or from yourself to the relationship. In all relationships, this Mercury retrograde is going to be a reassessment of what works, what doesn't, what's fair, what isn't. Mercury itself goes retrograde on the 27th, and then it has its cazimi point on the 9th of October. And at this point, the Sun and Mercury are going to be conjunct and conjunct Mars. When Mercury and Mars are conjunct, there can be an element of friction. There can be an element of overdoing it with energy and communication, either by, being aggressive or losing your temper. But because Mars is in Libra and the Sun is in Libra, Mars in Libra is kind of like a justice warrior, someone who fights for peace. As counterintuitive as that might sound, really what you're doing is fighting for peace. So there's actually a bigger sense, especially around the 9th, of clarity and communication and reaching a fair conclusion. There's a lot of supportive energy for justice and people being more amicable than if Mars was in another sign, say it was in Aries. And there's a sense with this cazimi point that there could be a breakthrough that is fair and just and is, I won't say peaceful because Mars is in the equation, but it can be a really strong energy of collaboration. So there's a lot of positive points to this. In fact, it can be some wonderful breakthroughs, especially in relationship issues. If you're having them around this point, it can be a wonderful breakthrough in communication that satisfies both parties. Mercury then goes direct on the 18th of October, and it's funny because it trines Saturn around this point, but Jupiter also goes direct, and Jupiter's going direct in Aquarius. Saturn is in Aquarius. So there's going to be this really strong momentum forward, especially because in October, Saturn and Jupiter both move forward, and so does Mercury. So there's this moving forward of energy. There's these energy shifts that are really positive, causing momentum. So this Mercury retrograde period is kind of like revisiting old issues, figuring out terms and conditions, figuring out what works for everybody, and then moving forward. There's a harmonious aspect to this, especially because it's trine Saturn. You can lay some really solid foundations for yourself. So this Mercury retrograde has somewhat of a positive twist because it is going to trine Jupiter 3 times. Now, it already trined Jupiter on the 20th of September. It's going to trine again on the 1st of October, 3rd of October, and then again on the 1st of November, which is 111. And this is going to be something that's very positive in terms of news, good news, successful stories, happy occasions. And in particular, these can be in the areas associated with Aquarius and Libra, so it could be in terms of human rights law and advancement. Perhaps with this Mercury retrograde, we will realise just how far behind the law actually is and how slow it progresses in terms of protecting people's rights, especially in particular groups. So it might be, for example, that we see developments in terms of women's rights where they're not protected, as we've seen a lot of stories come up about women being attacked just walking on their own or even murdered on their own in this Mercury shadow period. It's been something that's come to light as a theme. So we may see some advancements in terms of how the law protects your rights, which is Aquarius. May also see some significant advancement in terms of the law and technology, because the law is frightfully behind in terms of technology. So we may be seeing some movement there. It's going to trine 3 times, as I say, and if you look back to the 20th of September and what was happening for you around this time, as a theme, this may come up again on the 3rd of October and the 1st of November in terms of lucky pings of energy. Now, Mercury is also going to square Pluto 3 times. It's done so on the 22nd, will do on the 1st of the 10th, and then the 2nd of November. So look at the 22nd of September and see if you noticed any themes coming up again, particularly with this square. I want to say this. There's this overwhelming notion in astrology that squares are just negative. Like, they're just this thing that inhibits us or hinders us. But with squares, you actually think of structures of buildings. Those angles that we have with squares are used to form solid foundations. Without them, everything would crumble. They also represent points of growth and breakthrough in astrology, and with Pluto in the mix and Mercury, this is where you can also see some breakthroughs in terms of communication or even the law, possibly to do with Capricorn energy with Pluto there, such as governments and that sort of top-down control that Pam Gregory talks about, you know, the higher structures, the hierarchy, the patriarchy, those type of concepts can come up with this Mercury retrograde. So you might actually see some breakthroughs, albeit there could be some challenges in those areas, and those will meet particular themes. So look around that time, even notice what was coming up in the news, even notice what was coming up in terms of things you were hearing from other people. This may repeat. But because of Jupiter also being in the mix, you may find with this Mercury retrograde that you get a chance with something, or maybe even someone that you missed before. So there is a sense that chances may repeat themselves, because Jupiter is very lucky. So if you feel like you missed out on something, it might actually have a way of coming back around, especially if you're associating it with, you know, the Mercury retrograde dates going all the way back to shadow in the 6th of September. Things might start to repeat themselves in terms of lucky chances. Similarly, confrontations may repeat themselves until you actually get them sorted out. But the 9th of October, key point, key date in getting these things sorted out. So as usual, we're going to use the Kim Kranz Wild Unknown Animal Spirit deck and see if we have an animal spirit totem for this Mercury retrograde period. And how I think this one can actually really be quite positive. I think the Gemini Mercury retrograde period in the summertime was tough. And I think the Aquarius one was particularly tough as well at the start of the year. I think they were rougher than usual Mercury retrogrades. But with this one, I think that there is more chance of a breakthrough. There could be some challenges, obviously comes up with Mercury, and we'll get into what it means for the individual zodiac signs. But I do think that there are key breakthroughs and discussions coming up with this Mercury retrograde because it's in Libra. Bear in mind that if you make some wonderful headway with relationship communication, you may not suffer as much when Venus goes retrograde in Capricorn at the end of the year in December. So let's see an animal spirit message for Mercury retrograde. The wolf. Beautiful. I love the way that there's sort of this glowy fire energy coming off the wolf. So the wolf is an interesting one because in this deck, it can often represent the need to let other people have their own opinions, their own paths, and their own choices. With Mercury retrograde in Libra, you can see very clearly what your dynamics are with other people. And because of the square to Pluto, you may notice with yourself, unintentionally or intentionally, that there are unhealthy power dynamics at play if you try to control other people, if you try to control other people's decisions, choices, and their paths with the wolf. Wolves are an interesting animal in general, because I was discussing this with someone recently actually, how they're known as going in packs, but then you can also have the lone wolf. So there's that connection of the pack of wolves, but then also the individuality of the lone wolf. And being able to have both, being able to have time on your own to assess what it is that you feel you need, you know, knowing your needs is very important in relationship dynamics, but also being able to be part of something with someone else. And that is about letting them be who they are, letting them be who they need to be. And it's kind of cool in a way to be able to do both, to be able to experience both, to be part of something and to be solitary at the same time. And with the wolf card, it's also about knowing your tribe. Now, because Mercury in Libra is going to be trining Jupiter in Aquarius, and Aquarius is to do with friendships and the groups that we, you know, subscribe to, the relationships we have with people, the joint causes we work on, the voluntary experience that we contribute to, the causes we contribute to. A lot of people might actually find with Mercury retrograde and its connections to Jupiter, by November, you could find yourself in a new tribe. You could find yourself really connecting to people that have the same wants, needs, and expectations or aspirations as you do. And this can feel like a wonderful thing to have that camaraderie. But as I say, with Mercury going retrograde, there is a live and let live point to this, you know, allowing other people to be themselves and allowing them the autonomy, because that's the axis of Libra and Aries. They're opposites because Libra is to do with the relationship end and Aries is to do with the independent I am self end, and how the two actually blend beautifully. They don't have to be opposites in the sense that they never actually meet. They're opposites in the sense that they actually blend. So with the Wolf card, it's about being yourself in your relationships and allowing other people to be themselves too. So that is what I have for the Mercury retrograde in Libra summary. If you want to check out your sun, moon and rising, the timestamps are listed below. If you are someone who follows the Placidus system, I will put beside each sign what house I'm referring to. So say you have an interception and you want to look at the house that doesn't necessarily match your rising signs makeup as if it were a whole sign. Sorry if I'm sounding confusing, I'll summarize this better in a second. If you want to check that out, the houses are listed below beside the actual zodiac signs. For most people, I advise to follow the whole sign system, to just click on your rising sign or your sun sign or even your moon sign if you'd like to, maybe even look at your Mercury. And that is what I have for you. So if you want to check those timestamps, they're listed below. Don't forget to go follow me on my socials for regular astrology updates, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Pisces, welcome to your Mercury retrograde segment. So Pisces, this is happening in your 8th house, which will get you ready for Halloween, I am sure, because the 8th house is associated with the taboo and the somewhat scary. But with Mercury retrograde here, really for you Pisces, this is about seeing things from a different perspective in terms of psychology, healing and astrology. This is actually a very healing one for you, especially in terms of your intimate relationships. Now it is entirely possible for some Pisces that this will be a reconnection with an old relationship in some way, shape or form, because it's the 8th house. But it can also mean reconnecting with an old therapist or an old healer, like an astrologer or a psychic or a clairvoyant or something like that. Particularly if any of you are, you know, with the 8th house going through any kind of grief or any kind of loss, you may find that this is a wonderful time to reconnect with a therapist, a counsellor. Maybe even some of you will see a medium. But it's likely around this time that it's not about finding anybody new, it's about reconnecting. Because you Pisces, with Jupiter and Saturn in your 12th house this year, you're doing a lot of healing and it's unavoidable, basically. So a lot of you may already have seen a therapist or connected to a healer or an astrologer or psychic or a doctor or anything like this, and this might be a revisiting point for you to make some more groundwork. Because when Mercury is retrograde in a water sign house for you, it can be that things come to the surface subconsciously that you want to address and deal with. So it's a good time to work in any industry that involves the occult. So it could be something considered taboo. It could be, you know, astrology or tarot or anything like that. It could also be if you're a coroner. This is a time when you might see more work than usual. I don't mean that to sound really grim or morose, but especially in terms of astrologers, psychics, mediums, this may be a time when you find that you've more clients come back, or you have more people that you used to work with come back. So it could also be if you're a surgeon, you may find that you're doing more surgeries than usual, because the 8th house can be where we see a lot of transformation, and that can sometimes be physical. So that could be something you're experiencing. It is also possible that your mutual resources come into focus at this time with a partnership. So maybe you're talking out some money issues, or you're figuring out a new plan, or you're revisiting something you started together. This is also a time of healing in intimacy in general. So if you're in a relationship and you have anything that has been holding you back in terms of the past, maybe you've been very hurt before, or maybe you've been through some old issues that have dented your ability to feel safe in relationships or connected intimately to another, you can find a lot of healing at this point as well, and a lot of closeness coming out of your most intimate relationships at this time. A lot of healing, and your tarot cards were no exception, because we have the Ace of Cups and the Knight of Cups, meaning that there's a lot of healing in love emotionally. You're going to find maybe you're more prone to tears at this time, Pisces, in terms of release. Maybe whatever you're doing for yourself in terms of a self-healing technique, maybe you are releasing some emotions in your body, and because of that you might actually appear more attractive. With Mercury going through the 8th house, because it's trining to Jupiter and Jupiter's your ruler, you could really benefit physically from this. You could look better, you could feel better, you could reconnect to what it is that makes you feel special, what it is that makes you feel divine, because Pisces is a very divine feminine energy. So typically a sign that benefits from, you know, occult things, witchy things, candles, crystals, you know, things like that. So you're really going to be feeling like the most beautiful version of yourself when I see these energies. Even the colors are so beautiful. Some of you, as I say, may also reconnect with a past love. You may also connect that bit deeper in your relationship if you're in one. And some of you might even be having some beautiful conversations about the future, or you could be having, you know, people declare how they really feel to you because you are healing and maybe dissolving some blocks or dissolving some barriers to your love life and your emotional health. But what I really see for a lot of you is assistance in terms of healing yourself, as Libra is a relationship sign and it's in a relationship house for you. Your partner could be helping you heal, a therapist, someone like that. There's someone helping you heal some emotional stuff, Pisces, and it looks like it's going to benefit you really well. So that's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Scorpio, welcome to your Mercury retrograde segment. So Scorpio, I'm going to be very soft with you because this is quite a vulnerable one. This is happening in your 12th house. Now we have Mars there and the Sun is going to be there for this Mercury retrograde period too. So you're going to be experiencing this feeling of vulnerability, perhaps feeling like there's a wound open that you have to address, you have to feel, you have to experience. And because Mars is going through there, it's really going to feel like you have the energy to do the healing that you need to do, because with the 12th house, it's kind of like if you envision a body of water, say a lake, not necessarily moving water, but there's all this debris that builds up at the bottom, and then a storm comes along and shifts it and it rises to the surface. That can be what Mars is like going through your 12th house. So when Mercury retrograde goes through your 12th house, you can have these unusual dreams. You can have very upsetting dreams. I'm just going to warn you about that. And I don't mean it to scare you, but I just mean it in terms of explaining to you that if you have upsetting dreams, they're not premonitions. They're your subconscious fears coming to the surface, and that's a positive thing, because when your subconscious fears come to the surface, it means that you're actually processing them and you're not unintentionally manifesting them. You're not unintentionally going about the world in a self-destructive way. You can figure out with this Mercury retrograde if you're actually quite self-destructive and where you can heal that. You can also remember old goals that you used to have that you want to reconnect with, but you can also let go of negative habits that are keeping you from your dreams. A lot of people could find, especially Scorpio risings, that they're kicking addictions that they really need to kick, getting them out. You know, finally getting to the bottom of why you keep revisiting something that doesn't work for you, or why you keep revisiting maybe a past relationship or dating a specific type of person. But it can also be why you get in your own way in terms of your ambitions and your goals, why you don't actually believe in yourself. Because of its connection to Jupiter in your 4th house and that being a positive thing, you can have some wonderful conversations with family. You can have some wonderful healing conversations with people that you have grown up with that you don't necessarily discuss. You can also get to the bottom of why you're having trouble in terms of a family issue or a home or property issue, or you can do some wonderful inner child healing work. And the way that you do that is by revisiting the things you used to do as a child that give you joy. That's a reconnection technique that actually is very positive and easier to do. So you might have to revisit the past a little bit, because there's the 12th and 4th house here, Scorpio. It could be that you are, you know, working with a healer. A lot of the water signs are experiencing this, working with a healer, a therapist, an occultist, or something to clear barriers, clear blocks, and having these wonderful psychological breakthroughs, these reevaluations of where you're at, and maybe some stuff that is hurting you inside. If you feel more insecure than usual, it's not a bad thing, because one thing that can really come up with you, Scorpio, is that your defensiveness and your blocks to other people for fear of being vulnerable can dissolve, and you can actually let the love in that you need to heal. Because when people are really afraid of being hurt, they can go about asking for love in the wrong way, sometimes in a way that's destructive or self-destructive. And you'll find with this season that maybe the more vulnerable you are, the closer your relationships become and your needs actually get met. So, Nine of Wands and the Two of Cups, exactly that. You have possibly, Scorpio, for a long time been feeling defensive or been feeling combative. And Mars going through the 12th house is saying, no, we need you to heal. We need you to connect with yourself. We need you to be okay with being vulnerable if you want to have happy relationships. It is entirely possible with the 12th house, if there are some issues come up in your relationships, some combativeness, that is for you to get closer together. So resist the need to be defensive. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. And it makes stuff so much easier. Unless you find you're in a relationship that's incredibly unhealthy, that does not count. Don't do that. You might find for a lot of you that if you're in very unhealthy situations in general, whether it's through addictions, whether it's through relationships, whether it's through work, you might find yourself figuring out your exit plan. But I do think for the most of you, it's about realizing how you block yourself off from relationships, be it friendships, love relationships, because you have a fear of being vulnerable. That's what's coming up for you. And I also feel like the Two of Cups, because it comes after the Nine of Wands, is a beautiful omen for you in relationships, Scorpio. Especially as Venus has been going through your sign. And it has been letting you know that you are the belle of the ball, and that relationships, being more intimate and being a bit closer in romance, but even in terms of your family, is a beautiful thing that can bring you a lot of joy. So I hope you have a beautiful Mercury retrograde, Scorpio, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Cancer. So this Mercury retrograde is going through your 4th house. That's your house. So this Mercury retrograde is coming to your door. So you may find yourself revisiting old matters surrounding home and family. You may find yourself moving to be closer to home. You may be moving home if you've been out of the family home for a while, maybe traveling or something like that. You could be moving residence. You could be revisiting old matters in terms of property. Say you had a leaky tap and you thought you'd fixed it, it's leaky again. You could find yourself doing mundane things like that, you know, figuring out stuff in the home that needs to be fixed. In fact, that would be a beautiful way to direct your energy this season, Cancer, is by looking at what needs to be finished in terms of the home, maybe a project, or maybe what needs to be fixed. It's not about just suddenly doing everything new, because Mercury is about revisiting, reassessing, and reigniting. So, with the 4th house as well, it rules our emotional foundations, it rules our past, it rules our past experiences, and it rules our childhood. So for a lot of you Cancers, you could be experiencing a revisitation of past issues. Maybe you're dreaming of people from the past, maybe you're dreaming of things from the past experiences or things you used to do as a child. Now this is going to be trining to Jupiter in your 8th house, which is to do with intimacy, it's to do with shared resources, it's to do with inheritances, properties, that kind of thing, Cancer. So you might actually find around this time that you do some inner work that will benefit your closest relationships, or you might be revisiting issues in terms of home, family, or property that's going to benefit your closeness and maybe gives you a bit of psychological insight. For a lot of you, this could be realizing your attachment style based on your childhood. It could be realizing that you've repeated a family dynamic. It could actually just be something as simple as looking into your ancestry and seeing why you are the way you are. Maybe you've inherited some gifts that you can pick up again around this Mercury retrograde period. There's going to be a bit of tension with Mercury and Pluto. So your breakthroughs are really coming through where your partnerships and your family or your home life are maybe not, you know, meshing as well as they could, and you might have to hash through a few things there. There could be a power dynamic in a relationship somewhere that needs to be addressed and rebalanced. There could be a breakthrough coming there for you, Cancer. There could be some disputes with a partner surrounding home or family or finances. There could be some disputes that need to be ironed out there. But really what I'm seeing for you, Cancer, with your cards is an interesting one, because we have the Wheel of Fortune and the Queen of Swords. So with the Queen of Swords, you could be dealing with someone who is an air sign, particularly Aquarius, Libra, or Gemini. But with the Wheel of Fortune, a lot of you are going to be taking control of making your own luck. Now why this is maybe because Venus has been going through Scorpio, which has been bringing you a lot of blessings with that. It's maybe making you feel more positive about the things that you can do for yourself. But with the Wheel of Fortune and the Queen of Swords, it's also about being assertive where you haven't been assertive before. I do think for a lot of you, this could be a person that you've dealt with in the past, because the Wheel of Fortune is cyclical, so it's coming back round again. So for a lot of you, there could be something to address with an air sign person, or it could just be in terms of your communication. There are a few things that need to come back around so that you can shape a better destiny for yourself, Cancer. So that's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Aquarius. So this Mercury retrograde is happening for you in your 9th house. Now the 9th house is about our higher vision. It's about our higher self, our higher perspectives. It's about shooting for the stars. It is about the beginning of an adventure, journeys. It can also be to do with travel. It can also be to do with education, particularly higher education. So with Mercury retrograde going through here, you may actually experience a reassessment in these areas. You know, what do you believe? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to learn? A lot of Aquarius and Aquarius rising could be rethinking their schooling system. They could be rethinking their education. Maybe you've decided you want to go back and get a certain degree. Maybe you're realizing you want to study something entirely new. Or maybe you're just having a perspective shift, especially in terms of religion or philosophy, you know, what it is that you believe in. Rethinking your spiritual side and what you subscribe to. Which is interesting because it's going to make a square to Pluto in your 12th house. So Pluto going through your 12th house is asking you about what you want to release in order to get what it is that you want. So for a lot of you, it could be about releasing an old belief system, or releasing an old spiritual practice, or maybe lack thereof. You know, it's potential that a lot of Aquarius rising could have been agnostic or atheist, and then suddenly realize they actually want to believe in something, or they do believe in something, maybe from a spiritual experience that comes about by Mercury retrograde. Or maybe it's to do with revisiting the way you do your spiritual practice, especially if you do it professionally, and where something's not working for you there. It is going to trine Jupiter in your 1st house. So Jupiter going through your 1st house is bringing you a lot of blessings, just bringing you a lot of expansion. That's not always easy, because sometimes Jupiter expands the stuff we don't want so that you can get rid of it. You know, it can be that expansiveness, like a big balloon, and then it just pops and it's gone. So it could be for some of you that you've gotten rid of something this year that actually is going to benefit you, even if it felt hard. But really with this trine to Jupiter in the 1st house, Aquarius, is that it's bringing you a lot of luck, a lot of blessings, and a lot of higher self ideals, because it just feels like this Mercury retrograde, you're going to come out of it as someone more optimistic, but also because of its finishing trine to Saturn, someone more grounded too. You know, your foundations that you're laying for the next chapter are based in optimism, hope, and idealism, because we have the Star card, which is your card, as your tarot. And this is saying that with this Mercury retrograde, you might actually revisit a wish, or you might revisit something like a spiritual practice, or a meditation, or a manifestation, or something coming to you. You might get a chance to revisit something that you really hoped you really wanted. And I also think with the Star, it always indicates to me a wish coming true for whoever it comes up with. So there's something sparkly that you're manifesting. Not all the glitters is gold, but it looks like you're manifesting something quite spectacular, Aquarius. So that is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Libra, welcome to the Mercury retrograde segment for your sign. This is in your 1st house. Now when Mercury retrograde is in your 1st house, you're revisiting and rethinking who you are, and how you put yourself out there, and how you put yourself forward. For a lot of you, you might be thinking, I want to go back to my natural hair color, or I want to be more authentic. I want to be more like myself. But who am I? You know, it's about really figuring out what your authenticity means and what it is that you're putting forward that is true to yourself. Because Libras as a sign can sometimes find that in relationships, they can lose themselves a bit. They can take on the identity of their partnership, sometimes in their environment, and sometimes they can also be indecisive in an essence that other people then decide for them, and then they're not making their own, you know, authentic choices. I'm Libra and sidereal, and I relate to it a lot. I sometimes find that with Libra elements, you can really be almost allowing other people to dictate certain things that you want to do. Not always, because you're a cardinal sign, and at the end of the day you're going to be a leader in whatever it is you choose to do. But sometimes with Libra energy you can be indecisive to the point someone else steps in and takes over. So you can sometimes find yourself at the mercy of stronger willed, more impulsive individuals. But you are not doing that this time. You're really figuring out, Libra, what it is that you love to do, what it is that you believe makes you who you are, especially because it's going to be trining Jupiter in your 5th house 3 times. You have this beautiful expansive energy coming from Jupiter in your 5th house of love and happiness and pleasure, connecting with yourself, what it is that you love to do, and the type of person you want to love, or the sort of love you want to have for yourself, or even your relationship with your children. The 5th house is such a fertile house. It's all about growth. For some of you this could be pregnancy news. For some of you this could be an artistic project really developing, really growing, or something that you're picking up again, because with the 5th house aspected, it can be picking up something that you used to do that you really want to do again. It is going to be squaring your 4th house, which is funny because that's the emotional past. And I think with you, Libra, it's about figuring out the old you versus the new you. You might reassess and remember things that you've done before that you wish you hadn't. You might have some regrets of what you've done for the past that you wish you hadn't done. And this is about figuring out that those choices are, while you might regret some things, they've shaped you to be who you're becoming, or who you want to become if you're not happy with the direction you're taking your life. So those points of tension with Pluto are only there to push you to change in the way that you want to be, the way that you want to operate. And it's cool because you actually got the Justice card, which is your energy, with the Knight of Cups. A lot of you could be finding, Libra, that you're getting married at this time, because with the Justice card and the Knight of Cups, this is only if you're engaged, obviously. It's not going to be a shock wedding or anything like that. But if you're engaged, you're getting married, that's a change of your identity. It could be for a lot of you that you are figuring out the type of partnership you'd want. Some of you could be reconnecting with an old partner, but this combination. But I think for the most part, a lot of you are really learning to love the self, figuring out what makes you special, what makes you unique. But it could actually for sure be a proposal coming up, possibly in October for some of you, or a commitment in a relationship, or meeting someone significant because of that Mercury-Saturn trine. That's a possibility with these 2 cards, but it actually looks like for a lot of you this is a marriage or a wedding you already know of, or there could be one you attend that is significant. But I do think with the Knight of Cups and the Justice card, you might find yourself figuring out how to balance your love life with what it is that you want to do for yourself. Balance your own personal happiness and creativity with that of another's. So that's what I have for you, Libra, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Gemini. So Gemini, this is happening in your 5th house. Now the 5th house is associated with love, pleasure, romance, dating. It's also creativity, it's also fertility, and it's also your children. So with the 5th house retrograde here, you could find yourself reigniting an old passion, something that you used to do that gives you a lot of joy, an old hobby, an old side hustle, or a creative project that you've maybe let go temporarily. For some of you, this might also be reconnecting with an old flame or someone you used to date. Could be a relationship, but really with the 5th house, it's generally someone that you maybe had a dating experience with, or you may just simply hear from somebody out of the blue that you used to have a romantic connection with, or you used to have a creative collaboration with someone you used to do a hobby with, for example, or someone that you used to create art with, or something like that. It's going to be an interesting one for you, because I think when Mercury goes retrograde through your 5th house, a lot of the time it can be when people reappear from the past. So although it's not necessarily a great time to start a new relationship, be careful with reconnecting with anybody, because it is going to be square Pluto in your 8th house. Now Pluto in the 8th house can be your intimate relationships, so there could be a power struggle with someone if you're reconnecting with them. You could also find that if you have children, there could be a bit of a power struggle comes up there too. Maybe they're trying to assert themselves more, maybe they're trying to take back more autonomy or something like that in a parental relationship. But there is a trine to Jupiter in your 9th house, which is really beautiful. That's really joyous. It could be with the 5th house and the 9th house, you're making plans to travel. It could be that you're really learning about something that brings you a lot of joy, a lot of hope, and a lot of excitement. It could be that you are revisiting travel plans, and it could be that you are connecting with Jupiter there to your higher self. There could be an element of manifestation going on with your romantic life as well, that you're really reassessing, what does love mean to you? What would you like it to be? What would you like to change is something that's going on for you at the moment, Gemini. And how can you inject more fun and passion into your life if you've become possibly too work focused or too ambition focused, and it's about allowing yourself to have fun and indulge yourself a little bit. So I feel like you could be realizing at this time, Gemini, if there's any love or creativity or passion lacking in your life. And you have the Ace of Cups in the Tower, so I really feel like you're revisiting the foundations you've laid for yourself in terms of love, creativity, passion, and joy. And maybe where you could do with a little bit more of this in your life. The Tower is a crumbling energy, but it's also a bit of a shock. So some of you could actually experience with this combination a creative breakthrough. A creative project could end up being a lot bigger than you thought it was. It could end up having more insights than you thought it would. And for some of you, it could be reconnecting with an old romantic partner and maybe falling in love very quickly. Or it could be you realize that you actually really want something and you have to go about getting it in your love, creativity, that sort of thing. But you might have some power struggles come up in terms of children or in terms of creative projects or affairs of the heart. So it's important to remain open to the perspective of somebody else, but also to be very clear about what it is that you want if you're to establish more solid foundations for your future. So that's what I have for you, Gemini, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Aries, welcome to your Mercury retrograde segment. So Aries, this Mercury retrograde is happening in your partnership zone, your relationships. So the theme for this Mercury retrograde with you is reassessing your relationships, how you interact in your relationships, your own actions and the actions of another and how they blend together. It can be about reestablishing where there need to be some new boundaries in relationships or where there needs to be a balance of time invested from either parties. It can be a time when you see yourself more clearly in the eyes of another because some things get brought to your attention by a partnership, or maybe you just figure out different ways of working together rather than working independently. With this particular retrograde, it is possible that you could run into an ex, you could hear from an ex, you could hear of one, but it doesn't necessarily signify reconciliation with someone that you've been in a relationship with, although it could in some cases because it's Mercury retrograde in your 7th house. You could also just figure out some truths about yourself in terms of your relationships in general and maybe notice some past patterns. Now it is going to connect to Jupiter, which is in your 11th house, which is beautiful. It's aspirational. It is a beautiful time to manifest your dreams and your goals. So for a lot of you, you could actually be because of its trine to your 7th house, it could be that you're experiencing a shared goal with a relationship. You could be working on something together, and this could bring a lot of connection and a lot of harmony. You may also have good news surrounding a manifestation, something you really wanted to achieve, or you could have some good news surrounding a friendship, maybe celebrating something a friend has achieved, and also generating more harmony and collaborative energy in your relationships in general is the key theme that you're going to get out of this Mercury retrograde, even if there are some challenges in terms of your relationships in general, maybe some squabbles or something like that. You do need to balance your career and your partnerships in a healthy way. So this could be that maybe a boss is asking too much of you in a collaborative sense and you're not getting back what you're investing and they're making you do all the work, or maybe they're taking too much control or something like that, or you feel like you're not getting to show your skill set, as it were. You could have a very controlling boss maybe, and those issues could come to a head, and there might be some renegotiating there with career. In terms of career, I don't know about renegotiating until about the 9th of October, where there might be some breakthroughs. You could feel like you're hitting a brick wall in career until then, maybe with a particular person, or maybe you're just finding your career is taking you away from your partnership too much. And it's interesting because we have the High Priestess and the Four of Wands, meaning that in terms of home and family matters, trust your intuition. You could also be wanting to spend more time in the home with this particular energy, Aries. You could be wanting to make your home a safe haven, make it a space that you can retreat to. But the High Priestess, I think it's all about leaning into your intuitive side, which is actually a bit easier to do with Mercury in retrograde rather than trusting the rational mind, because the details get lost. So with the High Priestess card, you could find yourself connecting with that aspirational Jupiter energy, manifesting connection to the spiritual, and how this is actually benefiting your sense of security, how this is actually benefiting your sense of laying an emotional foundation for yourself. There could also be, in terms of family matters, something that comes to a head that maybe you didn't know about, or maybe that you can feel but you can't necessarily see. But I think with the High Priestess, there's this really beautiful sense of manifesting maybe something to do with the home or laying stronger foundations. I actually think because Aries is a very masculine sign, you might experience with this Mercury retrograde in your opposite sign a more emotional energy towards your partnerships. It could actually really help you lay the foundations that you want. You know, going with your intuition, being open about your emotions is going to benefit your relationships and commitments. So that is what I have for you, Aries, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Sagittarius, welcome to your Mercury retrograde segment. So Sagittarius, this is in your 11th house, meaning that you could actually reconnect with some old friendships. You could actually reconnect with some old teams, groups of people, spend time with old friends, and maybe revisit an old goal of yours, something that's fallen by the wayside, an aspiration, a hope, maybe even a charitable endeavor, working on something non-profit, for example. These are the type of things that might come back around for you. Because it's Mercury and it's retrograde, there could be some miscommunications in terms of friendships, in terms of teams, in terms of parties or social events. There could be some delays. Maybe you're trying to get to a party and you're running late and you hit every red light. And this is about learning to be flexible, learning to be part of a team really for you is one thing. So maybe you work very independently and you're not seeing your friends as much, or maybe you're not working towards your goals as much and you realize there's some things have fallen by the wayside and need your attention again. Because it's going to trine your third house where Jupiter is, Jupiter your ruler, there's going to be a lot of benefits coming to you, because when it's trining your ruler, you get a little extra dose of luck. Threefold. So with this one in your third house, it could feel like you're getting all the information you need. Maybe you're coming into some information you've needed for a while. You could pick up an old class. You could pick up an old hobby, something that you learned before. Maybe you have to retake a test or retake a class or something that didn't go well the first time, and you can actually see it with a fresh pair of eyes and wisdom in order to make this thing a success. It could also be that at this time it's not recommended that you sell anything. It's not recommended that you buy anything big because you might regret it later. So just be mindful of that. There is a bit of tension surrounding finance, which is what I want to mention. The square to your second house where Pluto is, just be careful of big expenditure. That's all I'm saying, is don't buy anything really big around this time. To be more diligent in terms of your finances. So your tarot cards were the Six of Cups and the Two of Pentacles. I do feel like you might actually be the sign, Sagittarius, who hears from more than one person you've not connected with in a while. And you might hear from them quite unexpectedly. I feel like this could be someone from a long time ago, childhood. You might spend more time reconnecting with your family. You might spend more time with your family in general at this time. Mercury retrograde in the 11th could maybe mean you don't want to socialize as much. You want to pull back and focus on your closer, intimate relationships. You don't want to be the belle of the ball, as it were. With the Six of Cups and the Two of Pentacles, you might also revisit something that you really wanted to do that you didn't have time for before, and you're learning with the Two of Pentacles to balance your time better, to accommodate the things that make you feel emotionally fulfilled. So you're really making more time, Sagittarius, for the things in your life that make you feel fulfilled and make you feel hopeful for the future. Because if you don't have any goals set for the future or anything to look forward to, you can find yourself feeling really sad. So maybe pick up something that you used to do or used to hope for, and you might have a lot more success with it this time around, I have to say, with Jupiter there. So that is what I have for you, Sagittarius, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Leo, welcome to your Mercury retrograde saga. So Leo, I'm like working my way through the signs here. So basically this Mercury retrograde for you is in your third house. Now Mercury rules the third house. This is communication. So for you, Leo, this is a bit of a blunder in terms of emails, in terms of miscommunication with other people, in terms of getting tongue-tied, wanting to say something, sending the wrong email, something like that. You could just find yourself realizing that communication or social interaction has more hiccups than usual. And this is because it's asking you to slow down and to be present and to be more mindful. You're a very successful sign. You're a sign that likes to put your all into anything, and you love getting recognition, and that could potentially be making you cut corners. You're the sign that comes before Virgo, which never cuts corners, and you could be finding yourself cutting some corners and getting in trouble for it, so be careful with that. But really, it's asking you to reassess how you communicate with others, what you say, what you don't say, how you say it. It could also be a time that if you were learning another language, or you were learning about communication, or you were learning a new skill, this is a time to pick it up again. Pick it up where you left off, because you might have more success with it. It also says, Leo, that the more you look into your communication style, maybe even your love language, maybe find out what your love language is. The more you look into that, the more it's going to benefit your partnerships, because we have a trine with Jupiter in Aquarius in your partnership zone. So for you, you might find that you learn something about your partner that's really helpful. You might find that you learn how to communicate differently that helps your romantic life, or helps you attract a partnership into your life. Maybe you've been too direct, or maybe the opposite is true. Maybe you've not been able to communicate about what you need or want in relationships, and that's caused a tension for you. So we also have here, it's going to square Pluto in Capricorn, and for you that's all about your habits. So it could be that there's a key habit holding you back in terms of your communication, and it may also be that this results in an awareness that your throat chakra might be blocked, and this is where you feel like you can't express yourself. This is where you feel like you can't say what's on your mind, or you can't be yourself maybe with the people you're around. So you're leaning into your authenticity, Leo, and what makes you who you are, because we have the King of Wands and the Hanged Woman, meaning that you're revisiting how you communicate, what you're interested in, what you want to learn, who you want to be, how you want to put yourself out there, and what you want your mental skills to be, and what you want your mental health to look like, importantly, what it is that you want to be going on in here. There's a good awareness coming up for you, Leo, of how you think and how that's creating your destiny, and how it's creating your day-to-day habits as well. So your mind is what you're going to be focusing on most with this Mercury retrograde season: your communication, your mind, your mental health, and getting your mind right, getting your mind checked, making sure that you're taking time for your mental health, and also making sure that you're feeling more confident and expressing yourself where you need to. There's a breakthrough coming for you in all those matters in the 9th of October. So that is what I have for you, Leo, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Capricorn, welcome to your Mercury retrograde segment. So Capricorn, this Mercury retrograde is happening in your 10th house. This is all about your career. This is all about your long-term goals. This is all about the success that you want to achieve. And basically you're rethinking it. You're rethinking your goals, you're rethinking your power, you're rethinking what it is that you do for a living, what it is that your status is. So for a lot of you, you might feel, with Mars going through there, that you don't like who you're working with, you don't like who you're working for, or you feel burnt out. You might feel like you've been pushing too hard and doing too much, and this could be putting a lot of strain on you, because this Mercury retrograde is going to be squaring off with Pluto in your first house, which can signify where you're handing your professional power over to somebody else, or you're handing your status over to someone else, or figuring out that somebody that you work for or an authority figure isn't really helping you progress the way that you want to progress in your career. There's a lot of tension between your career and authority figures or bosses, or even yourself, even getting in your own way, even standing, giving up your power to other people, or getting in your own way because you don't feel like you can achieve something, or you just feel committed to achieving something because for the sake of it, because you started it, you don't actually want to do it anymore. So for a lot of you, you're really rethinking your career and your long-term plans. The beautiful thing about this is that it's going to be trining Jupiter in your second house, meaning that you're going to become more aware of what matters to you, what you value, what you would like to be earning. in terms of money, because it's a money house, but also in terms of what gives you confidence, what gives you a sense of fulfillment, and what makes you feel satisfied. You know, I look at the second house as a place of where we feel degrees of satisfaction based on the authenticity that we've established in the first house. Because there's friction to your first house, it may feel like you are getting in your own way, or you may feel like other people are taking away your power. This Mercury retrograde could be about figuring that out and feeling like you have power, reconnecting with your power in career. With the Two of Swords and the Seven of Pentacles, Seven of Pentacles? Yes, Seven of Pentacles and the Two of Swords, you're trying to be very clear and you're refocusing on what it is that you're paying attention to and investing your time and your mental health in, where it is that you're putting your time, where it is that you're putting your money, where it is that you're spending, you know, tracking your time in a day, how long something takes, and if it matters or not. You're being really, you know, you're really reassessing what it is that you want to do for yourself in the future and how your habits in the day-to-day actually affect that. You're becoming more aware of what matters and what you want to nurture. And if you have some mental blocks in terms of career, there is a turning point coming for you around the 9th of October. So that's what I have for you, Capricorn, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Taurus. So this Mercury retrograde is happening in your 6th house. So your 6th house is to do with your health, your well-being, your diet, your work. And it's going to be trining Jupiter in your 10th house. So with you, Taurus, you're reassessing your daily habits. You're reassessing how you work, working smarter rather than harder. You're figuring out what tasks you do in the day, how much time you spend on them. You're also paying more attention to what you're eating and what it is that you're ingesting, or if you're drinking enough water, or if you're eating too much of a certain thing and it's actually making you feel bad. Maybe it's affecting your mental health, because there is a link between your mental well-being and the foods you ingest regularly. It's not about being restrictive or anything like that. It's about figuring out what works for you. So with that trine to Jupiter, it's possible that there could be a big opportunity coming up for you in career. Maybe one that you thought you'd missed, maybe one that you thought you couldn't obtain, maybe there's another chance at it, maybe there's even 2 more chances at it, or if something didn't get off the ground the way you wanted it to, your luck could really turn around because of that trine happening again. The only friction is between Mercury and Pluto is in Capricorn for you, which is to do with your 9th house and higher vision. Travel plans could get disrupted. You might have to check in with your levels of optimism and your hope and your aspirations, your higher self, basically. If you're not feeling in connection with your higher self, it could be that you are missing opportunities because of your perspective. They could be changing the way that you're seeing things. It could be that you have to travel a lot for work and it's negatively impacting your health, or it could be that you have to study a lot of new things and it's impacting your time. It could be that you feel like you constantly have to be on the ball and doing things and going and going and going, and you realize your energy levels are depleted. So this is about working smarter, not harder, Taurus. You will still get the opportunities if you work at a slower pace, but in a way that's better for you mentally and professionally. So Taurus, your cards are the Ace of Pentacles and the Ten of Cups, suggesting a lot of satisfaction is going to come for you work-wise because of this Mercury retrograde. You're going to figure out what you need to do in terms of your health, what it is that you need to do in terms of your emotional well-being, your mental health, and also in terms of your work, because there could be, as I say, an opportunity coming around again with the Ace of Pentacles and the Ten of Cups that makes you very happy. You could get a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment from your work because of the revisiting that you're doing, you know, looking at what it is you do in the day and also looking at where you invest your time. It's going to benefit you in the long run, Taurus. So that's beautiful. I hope you have a beautiful Mercury retrograde, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Virgo, welcome to your Mercury retrograde segment. So Virgo, this is obviously your ruler and it's going retrograde in your 2nd house, which is finances, value, material possessions, and your sense of confidence and self-worth as well. So to have a retrograde here with your ruler means that you're reassessing your financial situation. You're maybe looking a bit more clearly at your bank statements, figuring out if there's any unnecessary payments, what you might want to cancel. You could also be picking up a project that used to make you money that you maybe let go for a little while. You could be finding with this that you're reassessing what really matters to you, and you could be donating some items that you already possess. You could be decluttering your space if you didn't already in Virgo season. But it's going to form a beautiful connection to Jupiter. Now, Jupiter also rules your relationships, so it could be that there's actually going to be some strong values come up with relationships, maybe some shared values. It could be that you really get onto the same page with someone after a series of misunderstandings. It's also possible with Jupiter being in your 6th house of work and health, that the things that you get rid of or the changes that you make in terms of your money or possessions could benefit your health. So maybe you're someone who's very empathic and you find that you're living in a really cluttered up space at the moment, so you let a few things go and you sleep better. Or it could be that you focus more on the quality of your air or spending more time in nature, and this impacts your health in a positive way. It may also impact you better financially as well. You might get an opportunity to make more money a couple of times with this Mercury retrograde. As usual, if it's something new, read the fine print, be careful of contracts. But, you know, with the conjunction between the Sun, Mars and Libra on the 9th, there might actually be a lot of breakthroughs in terms of contracts. So if anything gets confused, it can be sorted out better with this particular retrograde. You're figuring out what really matters to you. But there is a bit of tension in terms of Pluto in your 5th house, because Pluto in the 5th house is saying where you maybe, you know, in terms of your creativity, in terms of what makes you happy, in terms of what brings you pleasure, you could feel like you're having trouble striking a balance between money and financial stability and what makes you happy. You know, maybe you're focusing so much on money that you're not actually feeling happy. Maybe you're focusing so much on your work that you're missing out on fun and pleasure, and it's asking you with this Mercury retrograde to pay attention to where you're accommodating some fun and joy in your life. You know, with the 5th house, it's where you get creative. You could pick up an old creative project and you could find this really benefits you in terms of a sense of flow. And in terms of your prosperity as well, because the more you worry about money, the more stagnant it becomes. So for a lot of you, it could be about finding a creative outlet that might actually at some point make you money too. So there's that going on for Virgos as well, but not every creative project has to be about money. It's just when the 2nd house and the 5th house have a bit of a square, there can be a breakthrough in terms of where you make money creatively. So maybe you've been trying to make it as an artist and you figure out what the issue or the block is, and it could be to do with your feelings about finances. It could be to do with your feelings about confidence as well. So what I had for you, Virgo, was interesting because we have 2 kings. We have the King of Cups and the King of Pentacles. Balancing your sense of security financially with your sense of pleasure and happiness emotionally. Balancing the creative, artistic side of your personality and the practical and abundant side of your personality too. Marrying the two will bring you better results with this Mercury retrograde, Virgo. A lot of you may actually find yourself reconnecting with someone. It could be romantically, it could also be someone you've known from childhood. That could be a water sign or another earth sign. So Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, or Scorpio, Cancer, Pisces. And a lot of you could find yourself really re-establishing a good friendship with this person, or they have something to teach you or help you with. You could also find yourself reconnecting with a financial advisor or reconnecting with someone who in some way impacts your finances. It could be your boss or something like that. Having conversations with them, especially if they're a water sign. So that is what I have for you, Virgo, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.